Welcome to the 180 Life Coach Podcast, home of the Becoming Movement, a place for awareness, truth, healing, rebuilding, and becoming. A journey of understanding who you were, who you are, and if you're ready, becoming who you were always meant to be. Because it isn't over. You're still becoming. And now, here's your host, Ingra Michelle Williams.
Have you ever looked back at your life and wondered, where did the time go? Have you ever realized that you've been dealing with the same struggles, the same issues over for years? Have you ever felt like life had just been passing by while you were sitting on the sidelines just waiting for the right time to jump in? Have you ever stayed in a situation for so long that you normalized it, but deep down, you knew that wasn't where you wanted to be? Welcome today to episode 3, The Cost of Not Changing. My name is Ingra Michelle Williams, and I thank you so much for joining me today. I want you to get out your pens, your notebooks, because I want you to absorb all of this. I'm going to take my time. We're going to walk through this. Because if you haven't had an opportunity, I want you to go back and listen to the first couple of episodes because we're building. The first episode was entitled, What If? What if everything that you believed about your life was shaped and formed by your prior experiences? Things that you may have forgotten. And then we went on to Why Some People Never Change in episode 2. And we discovered that a lot of times people don't change simply because of uncertainty, fear. But today we're digging deeper, and I want you to realize that there is a cost that's associated with not changing. Most people will spend their lives calculating the cost of change, but very few people will ever stop to analyze the cost of staying the same. And I want you to know that every decision in your life, every decision that you made up until this moment, even the decision to cut on this podcast, it does come with a price. If you decide to think about that, what if I change? What is it going to cost me? Instead, I want you to think about, what if I stay the same? What is it costing me right now? Because either way, it's costing you something. The question is, how much are you willing to pay? And I want to stop and I want to dedicate this episode to 2 women in my life who mean everything to me. And those are my daughters. Because as a mom, every one of us who have children that we brought into this world, or every one of us who has someone that we love and care for deeply, I know that you have wished them well. You have hoped them well. You have given them the best advice that you can possibly give from the bottom of your heart. And so today, guys, I want to give you the best advice that I can from the bottom of my heart. I want you to hear me today. Because the cost of not changing is costing you. But the cost isn't always something financial. See, it can show up in different ways. It can look like a financial loss, right? It can definitely come in terms of money. But it also can cost you in terms of the confidence that you thought you had in yourself. When we sit on the sidelines, opportunities that we missed because we were too afraid to open our mouth. It could be relationships strained because we are shrinking ourselves. We're showing up less than who we are authentically. See, that is what this movement is about, is a becoming who you were always meant to be. I'm not trying to tell you that you need to be anything new. I am here to remind you of who you were before all of the mess, all the bad programming, all the things that hurt you, all the things that scared you, all the things that made you doubt yourself. I am here to remind you of who you were before, because I spent my whole life trying to figure myself out. And that's why I tell you, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I am what I coined the term. I'm a humanologist. I am woman, person. I am a little entity of life that has experienced some things. And I've finally been given the knowledge by God to share it with you because I had to stumble through it. I had to fall through it. And there were so many opportunities that I never took. I never took because I never stopped and was able to figure out what I needed to change within myself. And I'm not sure, I'll be 100% honest, I'm not sure if I would have been ready to receive this if it had been explained to me this way. Because I was always looking for information, but it's costing us. It is costing us not to change. It could be in terms of health when we abuse our bodies and we do things because we refuse to change. It can be based in our doubt and our regret. And so now I can't make a decision because I don't trust myself, because I haven't wanted to change. But I will tell you, the biggest cost is one that comes in time. I mentioned it before and I'll say it again. I told God if He ever gave me a platform that I could speak to people, I wanted it to have a purpose. I wanted it to be intentional because I always wanted to help people in the same way I was trying to help myself. And I would spend years trying to figure it out. I can't get that time back. I cannot get that time back. So I ask you, how many years have you been telling yourself that I'm going to start that someday, just not today? And you look up, a year is gone, 2 years. In my cases, I would look up 5 years, 10 years, and I would be consciously aware. I would realize, like, gosh, I've been planning to do that for 10 years. And it was 15. And I get angry with myself that I didn't have the foresight. But I think I'm ready now. And not only do I feel this information was given to me, but I feel that it was given to me to give to you because I needed to go through it so I could understand it. I could feel it. I could live it. And I can tell you that I know that it works because I am not the same person that I was at the beginning of this year. The person that walked in 2026 is not the same person whose voice you're hearing now. We spend time because we think that we have it. We put off dreams. We postpone what's really in our heart, even though we know it's there, because we think that tomorrow will come. But sometimes tomorrow doesn't come. We continue to put other people in front of us. How many years have you put yourself last? Watch movie after movie, and I'm sure it wouldn't be in the movies if it wasn't in everyday life where you see women who so often will put their dreams on hold, their dreams on pause, and they will support their husbands in the pursuit of their success, all in the meantime sitting in the shadows, slowly withering away from their own potential. So again, I ask you, how many years have you been waiting? Waiting to start the business, waiting to lose weight, take a vacation. Well, friend, we postpone, we pause, never realizing that the time is one thing that we can never get back. And then those days, they turn into years and possibly a lifetime. That postpone, that delay, the time lost, things that we can't recover. And we can't recover. I listened to one of my daughters tell me, she said it more than one time. And I know the regret, it follows through on her. And there's times where she'll get up and she's frustrated and she's angry because she's looking back instead of looking forward. Because I promise you, when you have set on time and you regretted some things, all we can do is look back. And that's the worst thing that we can do because while we're looking back, guess what? We're wasting time. I've done it. Now, when I catch myself looking back with regret, I quickly shift my mental thinking and be like, we're not going in that trap. Ingrid, we are not going there. But I listen to my daughter, and it's every so often, just randomly, she'll make this statement where she says, I gave that man the last of my 20s and I regret it. And when she's saying 20s, we look at our lives and we think that we're going to live in the 20s forever. The 20s are like the golden years. We're grown enough to do what we want to do and bad enough to do it. Okay. When you start getting in the 30s, it's like, okay, I am getting older. For some reason, 30 just seems like the death years. And I think it's only the death years because you're feeling like you're going away from a decade of what should really be the greatest years of your life. And she was involved with a gentleman who she thought for sure they were going to possibly be married, raise a family. And they ended up having a beautiful, beautiful daughter together. But the situation, it was strained. Although she knew that she possibly needed to get out of that relationship. And I say needed to possibly, I'm just being kind. She knew she needed to get out of it, but she loved him. And how many times do we hang in relationships because we love people, even though we know I need to walk away? And so she stayed in that relationship all through the end of her 20s. When you turn 30, like I said, it's kind of like, I'm growing up now. I'm not that young tenderoni I used to be. I think 30s are a really great time, the 30s and 40s, because I believe you start having a deeper understanding of who you are, a different confidence that you start to walk in that I think is beautiful. But we don't know that until we walk through them. But it was just that this was a period of youth and vitality that she had come to associate herself with. And it's like all of a sudden I'm looking at my life and I'm realizing I'm not 20 anymore. I'm not 25. I'm not 29. I gave that man the last days of my 20s and I regret it. She can't get it back. So, what is this thing costing us when we refuse to change? See, most people think that in order to change, it has to be some miraculous event where everything falls from the sky, the stars align, and there's this big explosion, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. That's how we think it has to be. If I'm going to change, I got to do it big. No, you don't need to do it big. And as a matter of fact, psychology would tell you that doing it big is probably the biggest thing that's going to lead you to the biggest disappointment. The way to make lasting foundational change is the little things that you do. But yet and still, most people think their lives change because of one big decision, but they often change because of 1,000 small ones. And just how that can be in a positive, it can be in a negative. And so when you say, what is it costing me? It's all those little changes that you refuse to do, that you continue to do the things that you know you don't need to do, the habits, the things that you've gotten comfortable. One skipped workout turns into a year of inactivity. Trust me, I've done it. When COVID happened and I couldn't go to the gym, those 30 days of inconsistent working out gave me a new pattern of behavior, and that was not going because now I'm used to not going. When we have one boundary that we allow people to cross over and over, and it can turn into years of just resentment. One conversation that we put off because we feel like, you know what? I don't need to do this. I don't want to talk about this because even though I know I need to address this, it's better to every day just get up and avoid it. It's the little things that you don't think are costing you. The same way in my foolishness, smoking those cigarettes, it started with one little cigarette. And then it turned into 2 cigarettes. The next thing you know, got a habit because small choices compound. In the same way they can dig you in a hole, great choices can dig you out. The cost of not changing, costing you. That skip workout that turned into a year of inactivity, it turned into 50 pounds of gained weight. Everybody's not going to gain weight that fast, but for me, it did. I'm not young, menopausal, hormonal, angry. Okay, maybe not angry, but you get the picture. But the minute I made the decision as I started my process of becoming that I needed to meet myself again, did just the opposite. I got up every day. I didn't overpromised myself, I'm about to go out here and work out for 5 hours. But I made a commitment that I would do something every day. And then one day, I was like, wow, look what I did. So all of those little decisions, because you refuse to change, it's costing us. And then there's another cost associated with not changing. And that's when we start to settle. We start to settle in our own lives. And I want you to know settling doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it can just be accepting less than what you really deserve, staying silent when you know you should speak, settling when you shrink yourself because you want to make other people feel comfortable. When you convince yourself, you know what, this is just how life is. Because when you settle, you accept less than you deserve. Settling can also be putting other people's needs above our own. And as women, we are infamous putting other people above us. The children, the husband, the work, the PTA, the church, everything. Anytime someone asks, let me tell you how settling cost me, because remember I said there's a cost of not changing. I was on a path of explosion in my life. I didn't know I was on it because I was always the person who was positive, happy, smiley, get along with everyone. People from my lab, one of my jobs used to say, you know, Ingra, she's the one with the bubbles coming out of her ponytail. No matter what situations were, I would always try to look at them positive. But truthfully, if I stopped and was just honest with myself, I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy in my life. I wasn't happy in my relationships. I wasn't happy with my spiritual walk. I wasn't happy with my weight. I wasn't happy. I could not find not one area in my life that I could look at and feel proud of. But yet and still, I got up, I smiled, I gave the best advice, I did the right things, and I made everything around me look beautiful. And so if you came in my house, if you came in my area, you would think, she's doing good, right? I had a new car, I had a new house. You would have thought she is just walking on water. And all I kept thinking was, there's no reason for me to feel discontented with my life because I was settling and I kept everything pinned up inside of me. And even when things in my job began to shift, my finances began to shift, I kept it to myself. And I just continue to pour out and do everything that I could. I was starting to feel mentally overwhelmed. I had a mother in law who was sick, who was dealing with dementia. And I knew that surely it was the trying to be a caregiver that was really starting to weigh on me. And so found myself feeling physically and mentally exhausted. I had a job that was flexible. They would allow me to take off a day, or if I called off, they wouldn't give me a hard time. And I found myself more and more and more calling off. I would be off on Tuesday and Thursday, and I would always be like, you know what? If I call off on Wednesday, it'll give me 3 days to rest, recover, and mentally get myself together. But it seemed like it was never enough. I literally, one day in the break room of my job, just started crying because I had asked to take off a leave of absence so I could try to get things situated with my mother in law. Like, I just need time to try to think of a plan on, do we try to chalk up the cost of putting her in a care facility? Do we work out some kind of schedule at home? Like, I was just thinking I needed to focus on care for my mother in law. So if you guys just give me a minute, then I can focus on this and then I can come back. And they said, no, we can't approve you time off for mother in laws. They're not covered in family medical leave. In all of my life, all of my career, I had never asked for leave, but I felt mentally like I needed it. And that day in the break room, I just cried and people were there and I didn't care. And one of my managers, in all her kindness, she was like, you know, Ingra, I think you need to go to the doctor and just ask them if they can give you some time off for you. Just ask them. And I'm thinking, still, I don't need time off for me. But guys, I had a complete, full nervous breakdown. My heart was affected. My mind was affected. My body was affected. I never thought I needed that time for me, but it was all the things I was settling for in my life, all the things I had pressed down, all the things that I had taken on and stuffed them in the back of my mind and said, I can handle this because I always handle it until I couldn't. And one day I looked into the mirror and I did not recognize myself. And that leads me to my next point. Loss will show up in the reflection in the mirror. Your life mirrors back you, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It will reflect right back to you. When I looked into that mirror, my face was puffy, swollen, my eyes were discolored, my face misshapen. I knew I had been struggling trying to put on my makeup, eyes watering, me trying to learn how to do facial massages to get the swelling down. Body was toxic. My mind was toxic. But there are times you may not see it as drastically as I did. But if you've ever looked into the mirror and felt disconnected from the person, from the reflection looking back at you, it wasn't because you didn't recognize your face, but because you didn't recognize your life. See, we walk through life and we never see ourselves, not the way other people see us. I always tell my husband, I can see you. So I can point out everything I think is wrong, everything I think you need to change. I can point out a stain on your shirt. He may not see that stain. And in the same way, he can look at me and he can see things about me that maybe I don't even see and recognize in myself. And so when you finally pause and you take a deep look into the mirror, what do you see? And what do you feel about the reflection looking back at you? One of the biggest things that can manifest is regret when we don't change our lives. Regret, it manifests. And it's often accumulated one day at a time, one decision at a time, silently, unconsciously, consistently. See, nobody just automatically wakes up one morning, looks at their lives and say, I'm so regretful. It builds, it accumulates. And one avoided decision, one excuse, one postponed dream that maybe you put off 1 year, then another, and then another. I often look at my life and I think about all the things I could have done had I had somebody to guide me, somebody to help me understand me. See, I had dealt with a lot of traumatic experiences. I didn't think they were traumatic. I just knew I had some bad experiences from my childhood. I knew that I had a strained relationship with my mom. And I knew that some way, couldn't put my finger on it, that that relationship had affected me. I think it's one of the reasons why I have a passion for women because I try to give back all of the things that I wish I had been given. You know, sometimes it's simply just wanting to hear somebody say, I'm proud of you. You did a good job. And so I tried to do everything for others that wasn't done for me. I never talked about it to my family members. I never told them what it was growing up at 5681 French Road. And so when I left and I moved away from Detroit, which is my hometown, and I moved to Atlanta, a lot of people may have thought that I moved simply because I wanted to move. I did want to move. I wanted a better life, but in part, subconsciously, I was also moving because I was trying to escape from a place of pain. And I didn't even realize it. I tried to start a new life. I tried to build a new life. And guess what? God has blessed me abundantly. But there was always something inside of me that I could not put words to. I feel like something was missing. And so I continued every day to show up in my life, never feeling proud of myself when I should have, having great moments, but shrinking myself because I never learned how to be celebrated. I never learned how to acknowledge myself and pat myself on the back because no one ever showed me how to do that. I tried to be the best mother and love my kids to the best of my ability and do the best I could. But I still made mistakes because I thought, okay, if this happened to me, if I do the opposite, and to give you an example, I had to work a lot when I was young. I felt like I had to take care of myself because I couldn't depend on anybody but me. And that was one of the things that drove me is because I learned to be very resourceful. There's nothing I cannot do. If you say, Ingrid, I need you to figure out, I want you to build this, I will do the research and I will find out how to build it for you. I had to be resourceful as a child because when I looked around, I felt like I was surrounded in an environment that I had to look out for myself. And in turn, I taught my kids, you can't depend on people because people will let you down. You need to be resourceful. You need to figure it out for yourself. Resourcefulness is a great tool, but learning how to ask for help is also a great tool. I thought if I asked for help, that was weakness. And so I'm telling my kids, you better be resourceful, you better be independent, you better take care of yourself and don't depend on other people. But guess what? That was a false ideology. It was one that was born out of my own pain. And I had to learn to go back and apologize and say, guess what? Mama taught you wrong. Because you know what? If you're going to make it in life, we all need to depend on somebody at some point in some time because we cannot, let me say it again, we cannot do it all on our own. It is the power of having a village that makes us strong, not trying to carry the weight of the world on our own shoulders because it will break you. Just like I had that nervous breakdown, it broke me. And I will speak my truth and I am not ashamed of it because if I can save one person, the time, the struggle, the pain of having to fall in that hole, I will speak it and I will tell it to those who will listen. I've regretted what I didn't know because I didn't know it. And now that I do, I will teach it to everyone willing to listen. All of it was born from things that happened that I did not even remember. It wasn't until I came out of that garage and I started looking at my life. It was like I could see it clearly. I had to give myself permission to remember the good, the bad, the ugly. And what I found were several things that had been affecting me, silently playing in the background. Thought I needed discipline, and I lacked discipline. We all think it, even in our choices. It's why some people struggle with sugar and things. There's an attachment, there's a root to the struggle. It's not just always, I just love sugar. It's about when you take the time to be aware of a problem and then you get honest with yourself about the truth. I don't put anything in my body pretty much unless it serves a purpose. My husband fusses at me, you need to eat more, you need to do this, you need to do that. I look at food differently now. Everything about me has changed. I am becoming a woman who honors her body. I am becoming a woman who honors herself. The most powerful change, and I said it in the last episode, is I learned self-love. Because when you truly love yourself, you don't hurt yourself. You don't put just anything in your body that you know is damaging you, even if you think it's fun. You don't just allow everybody to put their hands on you and touch you and do things to you without your permission. You hold yourself sacred because now you respect you. And the coolest thing I've learned is I don't have to be perfect, that all I have to do is show up every day and be me, unapologetically me. I want nothing more than for you to finally, truthfully, honestly, to see you, maybe even for the first time, when you realize, why am I doing this? Why have I acted this way? Why have I believed the things that I believed? You have to be willing to change because if you don't, it will cost you. And so I ask you these questions. If I stay the same, how will that continue to cost me in my life? What areas have I truly been avoiding? So I don't want to touch that thing. I don't want to admit that I married the wrong man. I don't want to admit that I messed up some money that I should have saved. I don't want to admit that I don't like the body that I'm in, because what has manifested has grown from the stuff that we've kept inside because we don't know it, we don't see it, we're unwilling to acknowledge it. What dreams have you postponed? What conversations do you need to have? And if you did nothing, absolutely nothing, what would your life be like in the next 5 years? I want you to close your eyes, if you can, wherever you are. And I want you to imagine yourself allowing yourself to change, giving yourself permission to become everything that you are already meant to be. And then something shifted, something happened that put you in your place where you are now. But you are going into a restaurant to meet with your future self 5 years from now. And she took the adventure of becoming. She knows everything you know. She's had the same opportunities you had in your life. Only difference is she finally took action. What would she tell you she did? What would her life feel? What would her life look like? As she bet on herself and she won. Have that conversation. Because I will tell you, the greatest cost, the disappointment. Because having fear is not failure. It's the disappointment of allowing the fear to stop you from having the life you always deserved. It's about arriving at the end of your life, whether that be a year from now or a lifetime, and you get to the end and realize that you never gave yourself the opportunity to become. Because the cost of change may be uncomfortable, but I promise you, cost never changing be far greater.
Thank you for joining us on the 180 Life Coach podcast. Remember, awareness is where it begins. What you do with that awareness is your choice. And becoming is your decision. Because it isn't over. It's just the beginning.